So welcome, both of you. I'm actually going to let you introduce yourselves because I always think that it's always more interesting to hear. No, Bianca, do not worry at all. Hear from you first. So, June, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a bit about you.
Well, there you go. Lindel just told me she's bossy and I get to go first.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Well, basically, I'm a paediatric nurse and lecturer at Southern Cross Uni for many years. And I'd been busy hiking and bike riding around the South Island in New Zealand. Decided to retire and have this wonderful lifestyle. Found a lump and got back here to find I had metastatic triple negative breast cancer. I'd had 2 mammograms. Sorry, can't hear me? Sorry, my voice is also gone from the treatment.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah? So I found I had that. I'd had 2 mammograms and 2 ultrasounds last year. It was negative. Sorry, a bit closer. I'll eat it soon. From that day forward, I think I don't think I stopped crying for about 2 months. Was quite shocked. Why me, all that sort of stuff, until I realised one day that wasn't living. For me, living was waking up each day and say, what can I do today? We talk about, I heard you, Kirsten, talk about the challenges in rural areas of Australia. Well, I had some challenges here. It was Christmas time and I couldn't get a diagnosis. I couldn't get radiology. I couldn't get a biopsy. Drove to Sydney to get a biopsy from Coffs Harbour because we couldn't get one here for months. And I realised as a nurse, I had never realised the patients were having to cope with this. So it's a whole new... I had 2 different sides, one as a patient and one as a nurse. But I've moved forward from that, and I've moved forward to every day of working out what it is for me. And for me, it's getting up each morning and going, what can I do today? And let me tell you, I'm on treatment this week. I'm exhausted today. I thought, that'd be right. The day I have to go in, I'm exhausted. I was really on a high yesterday, going really good. But today I'm tired. So the tears will come today. But that's me today. So I turned around and, with a very supportive husband and family, looked at, I've got today, let's make the most of it. Because I don't think any of us have anything more than today. Even once we hop in a car and drive on that road, we don't have anything more than today. So we get up and I think, what can I do today? I used to go mountain biking down Threadbow River, loved it. Probably can't do that with bony Mets anymore. But I haven't actually got back on my bike. It's one of the things I haven't done. And I used to love running along the beach. I can still go to the beach, but I walk on it now. And if the days I don't feel like I can walk on it, we drive and we have a picnic at the beach. Because that makes me feel good. You know, that gives me that, I feel good. I'm on a clinical trial in Brisbane on Trodelvy, which we saw before, and it's working well. So that's really nice. I did look for hope in every article I could find, and I couldn't find it. Let me tell you, that was pretty devastating. But then I turned around and thought, well, maybe it's my story that can be the hope for the next person. And it's worked that way. You know, from being told in January I had 3 months, and I went, hang on, I've just got back from hiking around New Zealand. How can you tell me I've got 3 months? But that's January. We're now September. I'm doing good. And that's thanks to a wonderful team of people. I've had to learn to ask for help, accept help. As an independent person, I found that really hard. That wasn't natural for me. But I've had to learn to do that. I've also had to learn to do things like friends teach me how to sew. I'm not a sewer. I've got a PhD with quantitative statistics. You know, I like numbers.
Oh, my father.
But I've got someone who turns up once a week and we do a sewing. Let me tell you, I'm learning this embroidery. I've got a long way to go before I get any good at that. But we do it, you know. She's turning up, she's an ex-colleague, and it's fabulous. Another lot turned up the other day with paint by numbers. Oh, God, I really appreciate artists now. Even paint by numbers is really hard. So I'm learning whole new techniques. Listen to health professionals, and I know Jane sitting in the front there has given me so much information that I was able to use. The dietetic team at Coffs, they just gave me a whole new pathway that I could learn to do with. I am in Brisbane having treatment, and I love the staff in Brisbane, but I've not had that sort of knowledge coming through to me. I go in, I get treatment, I go home. So getting these people who know the things, that I've built on it, I've worked on it, and I'm still here, 8 months down the track. Yeah.
Now, June, you've now answered all of your questions. M1. What am I going to do with you? We had a briefing yesterday, and she said, I like a chat. And I'm like, this one's going to be hard to manage.
Yeah.
But I'm coming back to some of those questions, all right? We're going to hear from Lindel now about your experience, Lindel. Tell us a bit about you.
I'll let you go first because I'm a big talker. But anyway.
I'm in total trouble.
No. I'll rein it in. I feel like a bit of a fraud really because I'm at the other end of the spectrum of breast cancer. I'm early stage breast cancer. I currently just started radiotherapy this week. My name is Lindel Bosman and I live at Nana Glen. I think I'm a local. I've been here 27 years now. I think maybe it's 30, to be a local at Nana Glen. But anyway, originally from Sydney. And my mother had a mastectomy at 46. And so I've been having mammograms and ultrasounds, even in my 30s I was having them and then dropped off because I was having kids and then picked up again in my 40s. And certainly since 50 I've been having them every 2 years. And I've had a few scares along the way, little, benign lumps, little calcifications, had a little cluster removed once by Dr. Ross. Some of you probably know Dr. Ross. He was the surgeon for many years before Dr. Cylindra. And so I just thought, okay, I'm designed to have, little benign lumps. And then in January this year, I had just my annual GP checkup, and neither myself nor the GP felt the lump, but she said, been 3 years since a mammogram. I guess I missed a year because of COVID. And so off I went, and I happened to get in 2 days later just because they had a cancellation. And I have found actually that if you put yourself on cancellation lists, you get in there and say, you sure you haven't got an appointment? Or you get in front of people, it does tend to move things along a little bit. And anyway, so it first came up as they thought it might be the DCIS, the ductal carcinoma in situ. You know all these acronyms, everyone's nodding. But the core needle biopsy, which again, my timing was different to yours, June, because this was all happening in January, February. But I had a core needle biopsy within about 10 days, but that's because I got in front of them and said, sure, there's not an appointment coming up soon. And but that turned out not to be conclusive, so then I had to have an operation to have the lump removed. And at that time I had the choice, we can treat this as breast surgery or we can treat this as, just taking the lump out and doing a biopsy operation. And I said, well, what do you think? I don't know, how do I make that decision? So Dr. Cylindra said, let's go for the biopsy. Well, it turned out that it was malignant, stage 1A, and it's HR triple positive. So positive in the hormone receptors, positive in the estrogen, and positive in the progesterone. So practically the opposite of June's. So I went down the path of chemotherapy. So I've gone and answered the question too, haven't I? Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. So I'll leave that then and just say that I work for guide dogs. And I was almost going to bring an ambassador guide dog today, Pascal. I know, but that's it. He upstages me all the time. You wouldn't listen to a word because you would go, look at him, isn't he gorgeous? So I left him at home. I left the husband at home in the shed. And he's got a few hearing issues, so I didn't want to be looking at his pained face as he was sitting there thinking, I just can't hear anything properly. Some of you probably have that experience with husbands as they learn to adjust to hearing aids. But anyway, I live at Nana Glen on property, and I've got two beautiful sons, Thomas, who's 27, and currently riding around Australia on a motorbike, having a career break. I said, my God, you haven't even been in a career long enough to have a break,
So, Lindel, I do just want to pick up on the just to say to everyone in the room that each of your experiences is yours and is just as important as each other's. And I think this is a safe place to own your experience and not feel like you can't have that experience because someone else seems like they're in a different position to you. So we're going to own it. And we're all going to be here together, and it's all really about suspending any judgment. And I think we're often very good at judging ourselves before we even judge others. So I really appreciate both of you being so open to tell us about your experience. So, Lindel, I want to stay with you about the kids and telling the boys about your experience, your diagnosis.
Well, at the time, Thomas was working in Sydney, and so we had to bring him in on a FaceTime. And my other son, Joel, who's 25, he lives locally doing an electrician's apprenticeship. So he was there in person, but they all knew something was happening. And, they got a little bit teary, and I was, I tend towards the emotional, so I was sort of pulling it back a bit, because I knew, they take their lead from me. And so at that stage, I didn't know enough about it, but I thought, I better Google a bit here and just, so I could give
What do we say? Don't Google, but everyone still Googles.
Yeah, but the Googling actually takes you to medical journal articles, which is what I was reading. So, but I now know that BCNA is a very authoritative source of information, so
Well
I'll
done.
be looking to them for more resources. But anyway, I just got enough together to be able to present to them fairly confidently, and that, their grandmother, who at 46 had a mastectomy, she then smoked for another 10 years, because it was the 70s and the GP was probably having a cigarette in the office with her at the time. And then she gave up at Melbourne Cup Day at 57. She then went on and got bowel cancer at 82, but we don't think that was related at all, and we think that was the double scotches every day. But she's now 92 in a nursing home locally, so I have to hope I've got those genes.
Yeah.
So telling the boys, they actually got more emotional when they saw my hair was falling out. And then I made the mistake of letting my husband use the number 1 clippers, and I should have said a number 3 clipper, because it actually didn't fall out as much as I thought it was going to. So I was getting around looking like Voldemort for, like 4 weeks. And then that's where Michelle, my mother, and I went off to Michelle, and she provided me with a great wig, which I've only just set aside in these last few days. So it's been, the timing's been pretty good, because I just wore it all through winter. So the boys just handled it well. I brought them up with good values, and if I'm positive and optimistic, which I have to say, it's a different diagnosis, so I suppose I just didn't know how to feel any other way, really. I just, it was all just it was a bit surreal, but it wasn't, because Mum had breast cancer, and then it's in 3 generations on my father's side, which I found out, even though there's no genetic link at this stage. But if anybody saw Australian Story on Tuesday night, there's only 8 genes they've discovered so far, and there's about 30,000 in our body, so, it's probably in there somewhere. But anyway, and that's the thing too, is that you do, when you first get it, you think, I felt like, it's my fault. Gave up smoking 25 years ago, must have been those first 15 years, or, it's those 2 glasses of wine I have every night with a very rare alcohol-free day. And, but not anymore. And in fact, you've got to correct your medical records, because they still have that stuff in there, Like Dr. Cylindra asked me, so do you smoke? I said, no. Oh, look, I have the occasional one. Look, I've been to lots of 60th birthday parties in this last 12 months. I'm glad it was that last year, not this year, because I would have had to say no to all of them. And when did you have your last cigarette? Look, I was at a friend's 60th. It was the 8th of February. Okay, so she put down ex-smoker, gave up on the 8th of February. It's taken me months to correct that record. I was in with the oncologist the other day, and he said, it's got here occasional smoker. I said, I haven't had one since the 8th of February. I'm never smoking again. It's done. I'm done. And the same with drinking, down to a few drinks a week. And I don't know whether any of those things contributed towards it, but you do tend to feel like it's your fault.
Yeah. Yes, and, there is a lot of evidence and research going on all the time, but the reality is we've just got to deal with the diagnosis, and so that's about then moving forward as you have. So June, tell us about your kids, because you've got an interesting lot too.
I have. I've got 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, and yes, I took them individually and spoke to them about what the diagnosis was. And my 2 girls, one girl is a nurse, so she's on top of me every single day. How are you feeling today? What's going on? What changes have you had? What's the medications doing to you? So that's a daily conversation. And the other one goes, Mum, it's just great having you around. We just won't talk about it. fine, but she comes to my house, she's a teacher, with my two gorgeous grandchildren, and they come up most weekends, we spend together. And my little 2-year-old grandson, when I lost my hair, friends made me some beanies for the three of us, my granddaughter, my grandson and myself. And he had, my daughter, the nurse, had filmed me losing my hair. So then we showed it to the grandchildren of age 5 and 2, and they got to watch it before I got down there to see them. Well, the 2-year-old just took off. He looked at me and just ran. But now he's really good. He comes and we stay over for the weekend, and he goes and gets my beanie or my headpiece every morning as he comes into my bed with the books. And here's your headpiece, Nan. You better put that on. So we've got that worked out. My son, who is 28 now, and he was a bit more challenged. He would try to come to my house. He lives in Nana Glen. I'll send him to your place. A bit closer. Yeah, he would get to my daughter in Woolgoolga and go, oh, I forgot to feed the dog. I better go back home. He couldn't quite get to Corindi Beach. Then he would come back and go, oh, Mum, sorry, I was coming up, but I just remembered I have to do the shopping. I better go and get some groceries. But eventually it worked out. And now he's more comfortable, and he comes not as often as the girls because he still is a bit challenged, I think, by it. And maybe that's a boy thing, I'm not sure. That's what I've been putting it down to. I'm his mum and he can't quite work out this is happening. But he's still there and he still comes. But the girls are like two different girls again. One questioning me every single day on details, have to give every detail and show it all. And the other one who's going, we won't talk about it, we'll just get on with life. So that works, it all works. And the grandkids are really good and it works for them. And interesting, when I went to the school, they have a thing on at the school for the little kindergarten one, 100 days of school. So she had to dress up as a 100-year-old woman, which she took on really well, and then asked me to come along. I hope she wasn't thinking I was 100. But I went along, and she said, and the kids were looking at, I had just a headpiece on, I think, and she said, oh, that's because they gave Nan some medication, her whole hair fell out, but it'll grow back soon. And that was the end of the conversation with all the 5-year-olds. They were all happy with that. Yeah. So that worked really well.
Isn't it? We've got so much to learn from kids, and they're just like living in the moment and being so present. And I think often we make things way more complicated than they need to be. So, Lindel, you talked to me yesterday about one of the challenges that you found in your treatment around radiotherapy. Can you talk us through and what you've kind of done now to help you navigate
I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do it. Well, actually, I have to say that I cannot fault the local Coffs Harbour North Cancer Clinic, and Jane Kelly sitting in the front row is a big part of that, for which I'm very grateful. And I think that you're just wrapped in this, I felt anyway, in this incredible support. And the thing I kept coming away from was I was in awe of the medical team and the people who work in the medical system, and how so many people come together just to say, look after me. Obviously a whole team, they're looking after thousands of other people that come into the hospital too, but, 1 minute you're in radiography, you're having your mammograms and ultrasounds. Next minute you're in surgery and there's whole surgical teams around you. And then you're in chemotherapy and antibody treatment. Then you've got another whole team. And now I've just started the new team, which is radiotherapy. So I'm just getting to know them. And just a couple of take-home things there. And, I think the radiotherapy nurse is aware of it anyway, because she told me they used to do group tours for people who were coming up for radiotherapy so they could see the room. Before there's 2 treatment rooms. I think I've only been in one so far, which is lovely actually. It's lots of seahorses and it's got a bit of an underwater theme. It's a bit surreal though. I did feel like I was getting into a spaceship, because it was dim lighting and these 2 male radiographers were there waiting for me, which perhaps on my first day maybe a female and a male might have been good, but I can't fault them. They were very sensitive males and did all of that, but it's just a bit more confronting. You probably remember radiology because it's a lonely thing, it's you on your own. Whereas when you're sitting in the shooting up room, as I call it, down the other end of the building. You're there all together. Hello, nice to see you again. How are you? And the nurses remember your name, and someone comes around and gives you a sandwich and a cup of tea. Whereas in radiology, it's a much quicker process, so you don't expect all of that. It's a dim room. They line you up. You're half naked. You're face down, so you feel a bit vulnerable. I mean, I get used to it. I'm sure it's only day 3. I've got 12 more to go. And they explained everything, and so then they leave the room. And so then you're in the dim lighting and little background music, and then this octopus machine is just rotating around you with doing scanning. And then I worked out that when it does that little beep, that's the thing. And actually was explained to me on the day, because I didn't appreciate that I was going to have radiography on my whole breast as well as the targeted areas. So there's 4 10-second things. So, and that's a big take-home message for me, is knowledge is power, and if you can empower yourself with your journey the whole way, all the medical stuff, not right down to the tiny details, but just stuff like that, so you know what to expect. So I'll be more comfortable today. I'm going in at 4 o'clock, and I might just suggest you get a robe, and so one of the days, I think it was yesterday, one of the female radiographers, she, as I was coming up from the bed, she put the robe around me, and just that little bit of attention was really, I said to her, that's very thoughtful of you, thank you. And so today, whoever's there with me, I'm going to say, look, I'm just going to lay the robe on my legs, and when I get up, would you mind just pulling it over my shoulders? And that's just, tips that sometimes people don't think about. So it's the journey continues, and I'm very grateful for their support and service.
I think it's so important as well to give that feedback to the clinicians as you go along, because I know it makes a big difference to them, because they all want to do the very best, and sometimes it's just that they don't know. Yeah. So to tell them is so important. It's gone very fast, our time, hasn't it? Always. So June, your tips.
My tips. I think my biggest tip is I've been very fortunate to have a husband who's very supportive. Sorry.
Yeah. You just take your time, because we're all with you.
And I think my biggest tip is being able to, when people offer help, to accept it. Because I found that I've been the strong one in my family, and I ran everything, and suddenly now I'm saying, I can't do this today. Can someone help me? And those friends, family have helped me. So accepting that has been wonderful. I've had to learn to do that, though. That's not been an easy road for me to say, please help. It hasn't. Even my sister-in-law came with me today. And first thing she said, I'll come with you. And I went, oh, no, I got this. And my husband looked at me and said, why don't you let Donna come? And I went, I don't know. Good idea. He said, it'd be really good. So I've had to go, yes, I'd love to have you there. So things like that are really important. Enjoying the moments now, the special moments for my grandchildren and my children, just walking along the beach, just sitting at the beach, just enjoying the moment of today. I've learnt that my tip is for today. This is what I do today. This is how I feel today. This is what I can do. Normally today when I'm feeling like this, I'd probably lay down with a good book when I'm feeling a bit tired after treatment. But yeah, so that's how it's worked. The other tip I would say is, again, look at what you can do. Speak to people. Like I have this thing that I have staff in Brisbane at the moment wanting to put a portacath in. I've spoken to Jane about this, and I don't want it. And that's my choice. I don't want it at this moment in my life. And so getting that information from different people allows me to make an informed decision, which I've made. And interesting, when I spoke to the doctor about it on Monday, he said to me, I'm figuring you out, and when you, I know you'll tell me when you change your mind. I said, well, I got this. So I think asking for help, taking the advice and getting the advice from as many people as you can, and the little things make a difference. Yeah, family and accepting help. Yeah, and living today for today, because it's a new me. I no longer mountain bike, but I can now start to embroider. I've got a whole new thing happening there.
I'm expecting a Christmas present from you, June.
Oh, don't name which Christmas. It's a bit of a slow process.
Lindel, what about you? What are your top tips to share?
The first one is be empowered by the knowledge. Don't be afraid of checking out the statistics and just keep digging and talking and having your list of questions when you see your oncologist or your breast care nurse or your radiographer, you know, like even do your research beforehand. Stop being a people pleaser. You know, I'm an organiser like June and I do everything too, and everyone says, oh, you got this, you're so strong and resilient. If another person says I'm strong and resilient, I'll just have to slap them, you know, like it's just... You know, because they're used to you running the show, organising things and all of that. And so now I find that if someone wants to come over and help me in the garden, that's fine. But if they just want to come over for a cup of tea and a cake, no. You know, so I think just trying to put yourself first, be in the moment, exercise. I've found that invaluable. And I've actually... Coffs, we have a great program called CanX, Cancer Exercise, run by our local exercise physiologist. I'm not sure if Hugh is from them, but you know, basically he is, right? They subsidise the business community in Coffs. Someone is subsidising this. It only costs me $5 a session. At the moment, I'm the only referee, so I'm getting an hour personal training for $5. It's suspended at the moment, just while I'm doing radiography, but I'll go back to that. So exercise, empower yourself with knowledge, don't be afraid to ask. I was talking to you yesterday though, you know, like you realise how much you do that nobody ever asks you to do. You know, like just around the home, making a cup of tea, doing the dinner, getting the shopping, you know, planning everything. And when you're not doing it, your husband doesn't know the questions to ask you. And so so then it feels like you're always asking them, you know, well, could you just get this out of the fridge, get that, and do that. And then sometimes you can't find them. Like he's up at the shed and I've got to go to get him to come down, you know. And but yeah, it's not being afraid to ask. And so I concur with June on so many things that she said and wish her very best of luck on her journey.
A perfect way to end on two extraordinary women. Now, the one thing you will work out is that there will always be emotion in the room, and it's totally cool, and that's we've got each other's back in that. And if you do feel like you need a moment, it's totally cool. So thank you so much to both of you. It really is so special for you to open up to us and to share. And how many nods were there in the room? Do you feel a lot of love?